Welcome to the Big Bets on Campus podcast. This is the Group of Five Deep Dive. I'm Mike Calabrese, joined by Duck. And Duck, we are now getting 1 week closer to a complete across-the-board G5-only conference play portion of our season, but we're still struggling with some of these paycheck games, these huge spreads. I'm looking forward to, I don't know if I don't want to put words in your mouth, I'm looking forward to these teams being on an even playing field in terms of NIL war chests, in terms of, the transfer portal and what it's done to their program. Because, if anything, the month of September has been difficult. Some of the bets that we've nailed, we have been right by 2, 3, sometimes 4 touchdowns. And in some other cases, it's gone the other way because it's so difficult, the talent disparity. Stuckey has actually been talking about this the last 2 weeks on BBOC Live. It can be difficult to get in and figure out really what the differential is between these G5 teams, and particularly the teams at the bottom rung of the G5 and some of these monster programs from the Power Four that are going to go 2, 3, 4 into their depth charts. But at the same time, then it brings into account the coaches. Do they want to run it up? Are they a Kirby Smart and they don't care about laying a big number on somebody else? Or are they an absolute maniac like former G5 hero Kurt Signetti, who absolutely just wants to murder Indiana State for some reason? He was bringing Mendoza's out of the woodwork. He was shaking the Mendoza family tree and people were falling out throwing touchdowns. So it can be so difficult at this time of year. Do you feel the same way that I do, that you can't wait to just get into the meat of conference season? And it kind of brings back all the work we did in the preseason with the conference previews, where apples to apples, we have a better feel for where these teams should slot.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. It's going to be nice to get these teams on an even playing field. It's going to be nice to get these teams competing against teams that are more their speed, more their talent level. Will eliminate a lot of the blowouts. It'll be really good to start conference play, and I'm excited to just see how these conference races take shape. We've seen teams in the MAC, for example, at the top of the MAC that have played really well, kind of the usual suspects that are there. We've seen Conference USA already now turn into a complete crapshoot, where Liberty was the perennial favorite and they are just hot garbage. And we've now seen that league opened up to 5 or 6 other teams. The Sun Belt looks like it's going to be a fun race out west, which is good for you and for Southern Miss. So there's a lot to really get excited about in G5 football, and I am thrilled to start to get it ratcheted up.
Now, before we get into our best bets, the rest of our card, our Moneyline underdog, everything that you've known and loved here at the Group of Five Deep Dive, we got to get into our sounding off segments. And I got to talk about UAB for a moment because they're definitely in podcast prison for me. They have to go. I finally played Trent Dilfer. They played a pretty solid first half. They opened the game with a kickoff return for a touchdown. And in the last 2 weeks, 55 first half points, second half points, 0, nada, nothing, goose egg. I don't understand what the hell they're doing in the locker room. Every announcer, across the country always says, well, they're going to get in the locker room. They're going to scheme some things up. They're going to make some tweaks. I don't know what UAB is doing. I know the barbecue's great in the Magic City. Maybe they're just eating full racks of ribs, kicking their feet up, entering their names into the transfer portal on their phones, because they've come out and laid an egg back-to-back weeks, and they're playing Akron, for Christ's sake, on Saturday. Very frustrating. And also the fact is their defense showed up in the second half. I really just needed one more touchdown. And oh, by the way, Finley on a 2-point conversion, if he doesn't get it, then it's a 5-point game, a touchdown I can cover. He goes full John Elway from the 98 Super Bowl, just helicoptering in from 4 yards out. Where the hell did that come from? Also, if we're sounding off, hand up, I bet on Trent Dilfer. I deserve to wear the dunce cap, the clown makeup. I get it. That was a best bet. It was the wrong call. And really at no point in the fourth quarter did I feel like they were going to cover. But I just want to make sure that the blame still squarely lands at his feet. I'll take a little bit of it. But how can you score 0 points in back-to-back weeks? I have not seen a point differential like this. 55 points from first half to second half in years. I can't put it together how you can play A- football on offense and then an F in back-to-back weeks considering the opponents they were playing. What are your thoughts, Duck, on Trent Dilfer? Right now, 2-1, certainly doing enough to keep his job, but it looks like under the hood, there's still all kinds of issues.
Major issues, and really the defensive issues reared their ugly head. You give up 4 touchdowns and all those yards in the second half to Akron and really just took their foot off the gas in the second half. I was stunned to see it. I thought they were really going to be able to continue what they did in the first half. And the drive chart just was terrible. And it almost was just that they got into this mode where they were just trying to preserve the W and try to get out of that stadium with a win. Really, atypical Trent Dilfer football. We've seen him really play meaningful snaps in the second half of games, whether his team's ahead or whether they're getting blown out. We've seen him kick field goals in the second half that seem meaningless, and he's used those moments to try to get his team better. And just saw it look a little bit jerky in the second half against Akron. I was really stunned to see that he really changed some of his tendency up there.
Now, you're not targeting a player or a coach. You're going for the referees here, the Zebras, and you got a bone to pick.
I mean, I've seen it this season, but it was really bad in week 3, and I just don't understand why we see this consistent throwing the flag for phantom holding or these crazy penalties where they're so ticky-tack. The flags are up. Teams across the country are being penalized more. And I can't tell you how many times I saw that impact scoring plays. 4 different drives in Iowa State, Arkansas State. They took scoring plays off of the board for the most ridiculous phantom hold or ticky-tack foul. We saw it happen in the Utah game. We saw it happen with Goose and Troy. It cost Troy their quarterback. They threw a 75-yard touchdown pass on the 3rd play of the game. It was negated by a phantom penalty. And then Goose gets hurt 2 plays later. So maybe it doesn't play out that way for Troy and for Goose. And I mean, let's stop throwing the flag on these ticky-tack fouls. I mean, I want to call the game fairly, and I want to call it by the letter of the law. But you got to know it's an art to referee, and we're not here to see you, ref. So keep the flag in your pocket from time to time. Come on now.
Before we get into the best bets, there's a quick and easy way for you to tail us along the way. First, sign up for Action Pro. You'll get instant notifications whenever an Action Network expert logs a bet. Whether that's me, Duck, Stucky, Colin Wilson, you're going to get all of them right away. Plus, you can access our pro projections powered by Sean Kerner and his predictive analytics team and a ton of other benefits. To celebrate college football's return, we have a special offer. Just go to actionnetwork.com/pro and get $20 off the annual price of Action Pro with the promo code BBOC20. So don't miss out on the best bets at the best prices. Visit actionnetwork.com/pro and use promo code BBOC20 to get $20 off a year of Action Pro. Another way that you can tail us for some of the bets that you're going to hear in this episode is look for the quick slip link in the episode and video descriptions or visit actionnetwork.com/betnow. And with that, it's time to dive in to week 4. We've certainly cooled off, or I should say I certainly cooled off. I went 0 for last week, 0 for 2 on mine. So I'm going to let you go first here, Duck. Let's get the mojo going in the right direction. Let's hopefully deliver a 4-0 week on our best bets. What is your first tier of week 4?
Yeah, I'm rolling with FIU -6. They are a vastly improved bunch. We've seen it all come together. I thought the pass defense did well in trying to at least provide resistance to what FAU wanted to do offensively last week. They had 3 interceptions in the secondary, 6.7 yards per pass given up against that pass-happy attack of Zach Kitley. And they finally won the Shula Bowl for the first time in 7 years. I really believe that FIU is starting to put together a bunch that's going to be live to win the conference. And I think Delaware is out of gas after playing at elevation in Colorado and then doubling back at home to win that spirited former Northeastern rivalry with Connecticut that they really wanted to get. It seems like a total downer spot for me for Delaware this week, now traveling to Miami. I think FIU's defense here can really get after it against a Delaware offensive line that's already allowed 9 sacks this season. The FIU secondary has played really well against the competition they've lined up against. I'm thrilled, by the way, all 3 levels of this defense are playing. The red zone production has been exceptional. 12 red zone trips against FIU already this season. Just allowed 3 touchdowns only given up. So they're really blowing up when it really matters. I think we're going to see it be a problem for Delaware here. They've got little faith in their kicker here. So I look for Delaware if they get down inside the 20. They don't want to kick field goals, and they don't believe in their field goal kicker. He was 0 for 3 before he sniped that field goal to send it to overtime last week against UConn. I think we'll see empty possessions for the Blue Hens. And I just think the offense is just going to seemingly be out of gas after the last couple of weeks. When we look at Keon Jenkins, he's played really well for FIU. 75% completion percentage on his throws last week, while showing poise in the pocket and making really smart decisions with his feet when necessary. Keyshawn Owens is running the ball well, and now you're going up against a defense that's 118th nationally in defensive rush EPA per play. Delaware is 125th nationally in defensive rush explosiveness surrendered, and they're 91st defensively in success rate. So not good. I think Delaware's gonna be a feisty bunch this year and a feisty out, but I think they're out of gas this week. So I'm dropping the hammer with the Panthers. They're gonna get a big conference win at home.
The Nick Minicucci slander here on the Group of Five Deep Dive. 9 total touchdowns against just 1 interception this year, but we couldn't get there with the number. I certainly needed north of a touchdown. I was hoping that this would land on 10 going into Pitbull Stadium, but at 6, it's definitely a pass for me. And I agree, FIU on the defensive side of the ball, they put Caden Veldkamp in just a death grip. They boxed that offense in the second half. He was throwing interceptions. Really, that performance against Penn State was not a mirage. I know that Penn State has some issues, and Drew Aller kind of looks stuck in the mud this year, but FIU was a part of that. They certainly have been coached up well, so I agree with you. It's not a team that I can fade on their home field, and I know it's not necessarily one of the big theme nights at Pitbull Stadium, but FIU is more than just a gimmicky theme team at this point. I agree. I think they're a live shot to potentially make us the Conference USA title game. So a great story to follow there. I'm going to hit my best bet here. Louisiana Monroe traveling out west to West Texas to take on UTEP. I'll lay the points with the Miners, laying 4.5. I'd lay up right to the edge of a full touchdown. I said in the preseason, our very first preview of the year, if the quarterback position popped for UTEP and the patchwork offensive line came together, this team was going to be a threat in the conference. Well, Malachi Nelson has been fine. He just completed 2/3 of his passes against Texas in a no-sweat cover. They were catching 40 points. They only lost by 17. And that was all without Cam Thomas, who was out for at least a month with that knee injury. The line play, by the way, has been passable. Not great, but they're kind of hovering around the hundreds in terms of run blocking and pass blocking per PFF. That shows up on tape. Malachi Nelson's not running for his life. They are able to open up some lanes, in this running game. And when you give Hashawn Wilson an opportunity and some space to operate, this kid can pop. He's averaging over 11 yards per carry thus far this season. And I think he's going to be able to keep it up against a Monroe defense that is certainly not gangbusters against the run. Scotty Walden's system with Kenny Odom at wide receiver, being able to build a game plan around him, I think that's enough for them to score a lot of points in this game. But this play is really predicated on ULM's offense against UTEP's defense. And I want to hear your take on this, Duck, because deep diving what ULM is this year, it was one of your first plays of the season. I watched more than I probably should admit in mixed company. And certainly if people want to walk away from me at a cocktail party, hey, do you want to talk about St. Francis against Louisiana Monroe? No one did. But I watched like 3/4 of that game. And they stink on offense. They won that game, 29-0. But since then, despite playing Utah State and Texas, UTEP is, I think, going to be able to absolutely put them into a meat grinder because tackling-wise, this UTEP defense, they are first per Pro Football Focus and top 20 in havoc. What that says to me is they're creating negative plays and they're not giving you freebies. And ULM absolutely needs freebies because this offense is not explosive. And they're just a tough watch in terms of not only being able to protect, Armenta in the pass game, but just avoiding negative plays in general. And then when they get behind the sticks, they have to give, Braylon McReynolds basically either a swing pass or something because he's the only one in this offense that can pop. And in terms of him being a bell cow and handling 20 plus touches, he's 5'7", 190 pounds, sopping wet. So he's not somebody who I think can just take a pounding the way that Ahmad Hardy did last year. And you see what Hardy's doing for Mizzou. He was the heart and soul of this offense. So now all of it is sliding to Armenta. Yeah, against Alabama, his QBR was 4.2 out of 100. Sure, no problem. But then you look at against St. Francis, 8.5 out of 100. Huge problem. 6 of his last 8 starts dating back to last season, he's had QBRs of sub 20. That's just horrific. He's inaccurate. He holds the ball too long. That shows up in terms of his pressure rate and the sacks that he takes. UTEP by 2 touchdowns here. I think, I never like to get too far ahead of myself, but I think this is a ladder potential play. I think they're going to win by north of 2 touchdowns. So if you want to go ahead and play it at 7, play it at 10, play it at 13.5, I think there's value there. Am I being too rough on Coach Vincent, who we both like? We respect the guy. But last year, he was a magician. He turned lemons into lemonade, but a big part of it was Ahmad Hardy. He's not there anymore. I think this offense is going to fall off a cliff in the next month or so.
No, I like the play. I already laid 5 with UTEP. Shop around. I think there's some 5s. There's some 5.5. There's some 6. Get the best of the number. Make sure that you get the best to put yourself in the best situation possible to succeed. But you look at UTEP after that opener against Utah State, it was like Man, this could be a really troubling season for UTEP, and they really rallied the troops, got a great home win against UT Martin, and then they were in the trenches competing with Texas for 4 quarters, and they really showed a lot of life on both sides. I think that this is a major mismatch here where UTEP should be able to live in the backfield. You look at Louisiana Monroe, and they're gonna ride McReynolds at the running back position, and it did work against St. Francis, who's a transitioning team down to the Division III level. They don't have the same athletes on the field, but it also did look so jerky for ULM at times. They scored a couple touchdowns early, had to settle for a ton of field goals, missed a few extra points. It just didn't look really buttoned up, and we saw them get blasted by Alabama, and I just don't know that this team offensively has the talent to continue to string drives together. UTEP has been outstanding defensively in situational football in the red zone on third down, just 11 of 45 allowed. And now they go on the road here to the Sun Bowl. This is going to be just a really troubling spot here. So I love the play. Make sure that everyone listening in, get the best of the number, put yourself in the best possible situation to succeed. But this is absolutely one UTEP has to have circled in red ink to get their season and the winning ways for UTEP, Minor F and Nation, back on track.
Now, your second best bet is a team total, and it kind of jogged my memory. I was like, oh, maybe in terms of looking through the menu before I start locking in picks, let me look at every team total for the G5. And I just came back to yours as my favorite one the whole way because we got Maverick, and I think there's an opportunity for Western Kentucky to hang a huge number here in week 4. Walk me through this play and the fundamentals of it.
Yeah, and I can understand if people are scared away based on the performance against Toledo. That was such a major spot for Toledo, a prove-it spot, a revenge spot, a spot that they really wanted to get Western Kentucky in, and there was just nothing that the Toppers were going to be able to do there. But now you get Maverick and you get Western Kentucky off the bye. Nevada just had an absolutely gut-wrenching loss at home against Middle Tennessee. They really controlled the game, did the Wolfpack. They were up 13-0 with 6 minutes remaining in the fourth quarter, and you get the double long drive by Nicholas Vadiato, and they score with just a few seconds to go, make the extra point, and bam, you're a loser. And it just has to be so deflating for this Wolfpack team to now you have to get on the road, travel across the country. The numbers for Nevada defensively are really troubling if you're wanting to look at the Wolfpack here. 122nd in defensive success rate. Western Kentucky is 71st in offensive success rate. You look at Nevada, 101st nationally in finishing drives defensively. Western Kentucky is 30th nationally in offensive finishing drives. When they get down around the red area, they score 6. 111th is Nevada defensively in havoc secured. Well, Western Kentucky is going to be able to protect Maverick. He's going to be able to make his reads. He's going to assess the defense, and he's going to sling it around here at home. And then the kicker for me, Nevada, 107th in pass play success rate surrendered. They're not going to stop the pass here. Maverick's going to be able to go over the top to Matthew Henry. They're going to dink and dunk. He'll likely throw for 400 yards. This is such a bad matchup for Nevada. It's a bad travel spot. The crushing defeat to Middle Tennessee State is just going to compound the issue. I look at Maverick with his 10-1 touchdown to interception ratio. The Toppers are now back at home where they play really well. I look for this team to put up a massive, massive number here. And we're getting the team total at over 33.5. So I would play this. I would play an alt team total at 37.5 at about plus 160. I think we've got room to go here, and the Toppers are going to score a ton of points this week.
For my final best bet to wrap this segment, Coastal Carolina traveling to Mobile to take on South Alabama. They're laying just north of a touchdown, 14.5. But before I get into my full play, you have something to say about the total, Duck.
Yeah, I mean, Coastal Carolina's offense has just looked so jerky. 13 points against Charleston Southern. Anyone else in this conference would have scored 40 or 50 points against the Charleston Southern Buccaneers, and they were struggling to convert third down. They couldn't complete a forward pass. They've already pulled the plug on the Morris experience and have gone to Tad Hudson, and I just don't see Coastal being able to move the ball, convert third downs. They're not going to be able to run the ball on South Alabama, who I've been very impressed with in their performances competing against Tulane and South Alabama. So first bet I made when I saw this come out is I took the game total under and I took Coastal's team total under, but I have a feeling that those bets are going to coincide and correlate with what you like.
Yeah, I'm laying the points here with the Jags. Coastal Carolina to me is the Wile E. Coyote meme where he's run off the cliff but he hadn't looked down yet. Year one with Jamie Chadwell's everything, the culture, the foundation, a lot of his players. Tim Beck won 8 games. Then in year two, he's got a losing season. Now he's trying to save his job. He brought in new coordinators. Defensive coordinator I liked. Offensive coordinator Drew Hollingshead. He needed the pieces. They don't have the pieces. And I think the rapid descent to the bottom of the sport has begun. I don't think anything is going to stop it here. Each game has been worse than the previous one, as you mentioned. At 48-7, they looked listless against Virginia. No fight in that game. Then they scored 13 points against Charleston Southern, one of the worst college football teams. You can go across anything. You go D2, D3, NAIA, whatever you want to talk. Charleston Southern belongs in that conversation at the very bottom. And then they lose last week 38-0 to East Carolina. MJ Morris, as you mentioned, got the hook. Tad Hudson comes in. Either one of them, you put them together, 0 passing touchdowns. This is an air raid offense, 0 passing touchdowns and 6 interceptions. And then South Alabama, I mean, they have an offense. Bishop Davenport to Devin Voisin. The connection is real. Despite playing Tulane and Auburn, who you mentioned, he's already got 19 receptions, 266 yards, and 4 TDs. Kentrell Bullock has gone across the century mark twice in 3 weeks, and he's going to be able to shoulder one of the heaviest rushing loads of any back in the G5. So in terms of having a bell cow to rely on when they get the lead and kind of to break the back and the will of this Shantz defense, he's the guy to do it. And Major Applewhite, I had questions about Paul Petrino and how the offense would mesh together, but it's humming. Everything that they're putting together, game planning around a green offensive line, that was a big concern coming to the season. We'll see if they have more issues with it when they bump up into Sun Belt play and there's a bit more continuity on the defensive side, the ball that they're facing, people understanding what they're trying to do schematically. Are they able to get to the quarterback? Well, at least here in non-conference play, they've been able to mix it up enough, getting the ball out of Davenport's hands quickly, that it hasn't been an issue. Because when you look back, I watched on 2x speed, the fourth quarter of their game against Auburn, and Auburn won it with their defensive line. It was a strip sack late in the game inside their own 20, with South Alabama driving to make it potentially a 1-score game. That's what ended up winning it. So generating pressure without blitzing is how you beat the South Alabama team. The Shantz do not have the horses to do that. So, you just go through. You don't even need to go to deep analytics of it. Coastal has generated 2 sacks in 3 games. Jeremiah Johnson blitzes at an average rate, which means that he's not going to pull any rabbits out of his hat. He's not going to come with any crazy exotic blitzes or zone blitzes to try to confuse him. I just don't think that they have any of the answers they need to stay in this game. I think it's going to be a runaway for South Alabama, so I'm going to go ahead and lay the 14.5. Any closing thoughts on this one, or potentially the ceiling for South Alabama as they head into Sun Belt play?
Yeah, Coastal Carolina, 13 out of 42 on third down, and the sacks and the negative plays that they've allowed are very concerning in this matchup. South Alabama is going to be able to get home just by rushing 4. And again, Coastal's not going to be able to matriculate the ball down the field. They're not going to be able to sustain possession of the ball. They've already been significantly out-possessioned a couple times this season. And it's just so concerning when you don't score a single point on ECU. ECU is a good football team, but their defense is not elite. And you don't score a single point on them, and 13 against Charleston Southern. Not going to go well here for Coastal. And I think this could be... Let's put it on the radar, and we'll bookmark this and circle back to it. But Coastal might be on the fade train here weekly. This could go really bad for them.
So last year, North Texas and Army, both great starts to the season. Then they meet up. Army continues to march on. They go all the way, win the American, double-digit wins, Captain America at quarterback. And North Texas goes in the opposite direction. A weird game, turnovers in the red zone, their high-flying, high-scoring offense just with a thud, it hits the carpet, and they basically limped, to the finish line of the 2024 season. Now they have them meeting up again. Yes, there's an ugly FCS loss on Army's resume, but they rebounded nicely with a huge upset against K-State. And then North Texas is coming off one of the most impressive G5 beatdowns of, it's no longer a Power 4 team, but they basically treated Wazoo very poorly, and I think it was 59-10. That was the final score there. So once again, there's huge reasons for optimism for both of these teams, a huge conflict and contrast in styles here. Take me through the 4-minute offense of the Mean Green against the Cadets.
Well, we look at the bugaboo for North Texas over the years. Their offense has been high flying, but their defense just could not secure stops. The improvements that have been made by Skylar Cassidy in year one have been stunning up to this point, and it is very real. 2.7 yards per rush surrendered on defense, only 230 yards per game given up, 3.7 yards per play. This defense is completely flying to the football all over the field. Only 3 red zone touchdowns surrendered this entire season. They are 29th in defensive success rate. The Mean Green are 13th in defensive EPA per play surrendered. North Texas is 21st in standard down success rate. They're good in the early downs. They're good on third down. They're good on the red zone. This defense has played very, very solid. They turn you over. And now this team has already seen the Army option attack. They saw it last year. Was one of the only teams that was able to really quarantine Army all season, the other being Notre Dame. And then we saw Navy do it in the Army-Navy game due to the familiarity. But I think North Texas will be prepared for this attack. I think they have a relative fingerprint that they need to deploy on how to stop it. And we're now seeing truly Army is missing their explosivity and their punch on offense. Their comeback win against Kansas State, in my opinion, says a lot more about the Wildcats than it does Army. I was stunned at the apathetic nature of the team. Kansas State looked so dejected, and up 13-0, they had a chance to completely put the stranglehold on Army, and they didn't do it. Let's dive into Army's offense real quick. Just 3.8 yards per rush and 91st nationally in offensive explosiveness this season. They don't have a lot of the chunk plays. They don't have the pop plays. They're really missing Bryson Daly and Kanye Udo to really provide that explosiveness. It's just simply not there. 77th is Army in offensive finishing drives, and they're 93rd in offensive success rate. When you're not achieving successful plays consistently, you're consistently behind the sticks, you're in an unfavorable down distance, and I'm not banking on Army being able to throw their way out of it against this team. Now, when you look at North Texas offensively, Mestamaker has just been brilliant this season, 70% completion percentage, 9 touchdowns. He has not thrown an interception this season, and he doesn't make mistakes. Army defensively is 114th in pass play explosiveness allowed and 95th in pass play EPA. Army played FCS Tarleton State, and Tarleton was in as bad a situation as you're possibly going to get from a schedule perspective. They had short rest. They were traveling back to Texas from Portland. They had 48 hours to regroup. They had to double back and get on the plane. Army had the lead in that game and let it get away. And I don't think that Army's going to be able to defend the passing attack, just like they couldn't defend Tarleton's pass attack. Victor Caballas was able to throw it around against Army consistently for 4 quarters. Kansas State wasn't able to really exploit Army's secondary. North Texas is absolutely going to eat this back 7 alive through the pass. I'm just not buying it here. I took North Texas at +3 on the openers. I would go back right now for Moneyline -120 on North Texas. They are going to win this game on the field, no points needed. And I really think this is going to be a springboard type of game for North Texas to win the conference, or at least to get close in position to have a say in what's going to happen in the American Conference in late November. They're still 10-1 to win the league, and they're still undervalued.
We turn now to our Group of 5 Moneyline Parlay. I'm going to add a leg at +125. Duck is chipping in a big one, +245. Payout's going to be close to 7-1. You can go ahead and shop around. Get the best numbers, obviously. Let's start with Southern Miss, +125 in Ruston, taking on Louisiana Tech. We all took flyers on Southern Miss, here in BBOC lands, any number ranging from 25-1 to 40-1 to win the belt. We did that because the coaching upgrades, not just the head coach, specifically the coordinators, Blake Anderson working with Braylon Braxton, piqued our interest. The defense had an opportunity to be special in the secondary if everything gelled. Well, 3 games in, USM is 2-1. They lost to Mississippi State in the opener by 17, but that's a loss that is looking like a quality loss at this point. Mississippi State is now receiving votes in the AP poll, essentially ranking them 29th in the country. And after that, they handled Jackson State, and then they dominated App State 38-22 at home with a big game from Braxton. So when I flip over to the defensive side of things and I look through some of the tape, the secondary I was hoping would pop. They're coming off 3 interceptions against App State. Now here comes an overachiever, in my opinion, in La Tech. Honestly, I didn't see them playing this well this season. They shut out Southeast Louisiana. They pestered LSU for 4 quarters in a respectable 23-7 loss in Death Valley. And then they nuked New Mexico State, who I'm pretty low on, but they still beat the stuffing out of them 49-14 at home. But when you dig into the box scores, you don't have to look far before you see some red flags. The passing game is a mess. Despite an FCS opponent and New Mexico State, they're 120th in yards per game through the air. If they go with Blake Baker, he's a risk taker. Easy for me to say. He's got an ADOT of 13.2. But the thing is, he's completed less than 50% of his attempts. No big-time throws yet. And I like Jason Seymour to he's going to lay a trap or two for this kid because he's just not efficient. He's not processing quick enough. He's not accurate enough with the ball. And he's somebody who wants to push the ball downfield. To me, that's a perfect recipe for an overthrow interception or two. And really what he brings to the table is he's a dual threat. The kid can really run, but Seymour's defense did a great job bottling up a Jackson State quarterback by the name of Jacobian Morgan from he at the FCS level is a good dual threat quarterback. But if you want more evidence that he knows how to do it with a mush rush, with QB spies, look at what he did last year as Marshall's defensive coordinator. He corralled Alonzo Barnett III from James Madison. No one really did for the last 2 months of the season last year. He threw the shackles on Ethan Basco when he was at Coastal. Didn't let Kyron Jones get going for Virginia Tech either. Only Colton Joseph hurt him with his legs. So the fact is, I think it's more likely than not he is going to be successful with his game plan of taking away the design runs and basically laying traps, not just in coverage on the back end, but as I mentioned, with that mush rush and some of the stunts that he's going to use to be able to confuse this kid so he's not confident in what he's seeing and where those rushing lanes are going to be. If you go ahead with that and you throw in some zero coverage or single high safety and you say, go ahead and beat us downfield, I don't think the kid can consistently do it. I think the wrong team is favored here. At the very least, I think this should be a coin flip. So any plus money is a play on the Golden Eagles here. I'm on USM. Are you still as confident as you were in the preseason about the upside of Southern Miss?
Yeah, and I want to be clear on this too. This is not just a team that we're falling in love with and then blindly betting no matter what. We're still seeing significant undervalue in Southern Miss. And anyone listening in is probably on the app and you've seen my action come through. They've seen your action come through. I bet Southern Miss against Jackson State. I bet Southern Miss last week. I've already put a play in on Southern Miss against the number this week. We are doing that not necessarily because we've fallen in love with the team and the coach and the personnel, but we're betting numbers, we're betting on undervalued situations, and the disrespect for Southern Miss just continues to be there when now they're stepping down in class. They play in a stronger conference, they have better athletes. Conference USA is widely regarded as the weakest of the Group of 5 conferences, and I still don't have as much faith in Louisiana Tech as a lot of other people are starting to buy into. The offense looks so jerky. They really haven't gotten it all humming together. A lot's been made about the new offensive coordinator that was brought in, but we're still just not seeing the high-flying Sonny Cumbie offense that he said he was going to deliver. We haven't seen it during his tenure at all. And so I just want to be clear for people listening in too. Like, we like this Southern Miss team. We're betting them for many more reasons than just because we've fallen in love with this bunch. So they're a good team. They're undervalued. We're going to continue to play them if the numbers make sense. And so I love the Moneyline play. It's an old rivalry. It's the black and blue rivalry with Southern Miss and Louisiana Tech. These teams don't like each other very much, but make no mistake about it, Southern Miss is going to show up here ready to go.
All right, walk me through the ECU portion of this. It's a bigger swing, as I mentioned at the top of this segment, but there's a lot to like about what they're doing. They're clearly coming off, a confidence-boosting winning going away 38-0 last week. What needs to happen, in your opinion, for this to go from a nice story hanging around in the fourth quarter, got a chance to, no, they're in control of this game, they're going to win it, and they do win it? What's that key elements that you need to see from ECU to feel confident?
Well, there's a couple of things, and I'll kind of get into it. I was researching ECU in the preseason, and I really wanted to fall in love with the Pirates as a surprise team in the American, a team that could climb up and win the league. And I just couldn't get there for a couple of different reasons that were glaringly problematic. And it appears that ECU has corrected some of those things. When you look at Caden Hauser, he's been such a pleasant surprise with how he's throwing the football. 973 yards, a 5-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, completing 72%. They were just such a turnover machine last year, and he was a big part of it. And he's protecting the football. He's not playing flippantly with it. They're executing in the red zone, and they're spreading the ball around really nicely. 5 players already have at least 8 catches on the season. They've got plenty of capable weapons here. They're converting 58% on third down. They are excellent when it comes to the money down and extending drives and moving the sticks. East Carolina is really doing well to accumulate drives that see scoring chances. The Pirates have 20 red zone attempts already this season. They had 9 red zone attempts last week against Coastal Carolina. So I really like what I've seen from ECU offensively. They lost Harris, their bell cow running back, and they've really been able to pivot to a little bit of a different style, and they've been really doing well at protecting the football, executing on third down, and they're moving it into the red zone, and they're cashing in when they do. Now you look at the defense, they've been just lights out on the ground, even with the talent that they lost on last year's team, surrendering just 2 yards per carry on the entire season and only giving up 32% on third down. If you just go look at the film, from the second quarter on against North Carolina State, they've been flying to the football. They've been tackling very well. They're creating turnovers. It's been absolute lights out from the Pirates defense. I'm very encouraged by that. You look at BYU, and their stats are just so skewed by who this group has played. BYU has played Portland State and Stanford, and I just don't think we know enough yet about how good this team is to see them go across the country and make them 7.5-point favorites on the road here. I'm not impressed by the 69-0 blowout of Portland State because they just ran it up at home against a team that just cannot compete on that level. And we've seen Stanford time and time again not be able to complete a pass. BYU wants to line up and run the football, and we're going to see ECU crowd the box. They're going to sneak an extra defender into the box close to the line of scrimmage. BYU's going to have to check out of it on the road. They're going to have to throw more here. And when I put on the film and I watch Bachmeier hold the ball and go through his progression and hold it and continue to hold it and continue to hold it, it's painful. It's just painful to watch, and it's not going to work well against this ECU team that's getting to the quarterback, creating negative plays. He stares down his primary target from time to time, and it's going to get BYU in some major trouble when they go up against the athleticism of ECU's defense here. This is a rare opportunity for ECU in hosting a Power 4 program in their building. I think BYU still is significantly downgraded from the team that they were last year. We've seen Ratzlaff dazzle now at Tulane, and they don't have him anymore. It's going to look a little wonky here. I think ECU is going to be able to torch the Cougs secondary. They haven't been tested all season. Nobody's been able to even complete a pass because they don't have the talent. Their opponents didn't have the talent to throw it around. ECU is really going to challenge BYU here. I will not be surprised at all. If you've got the app, you've seen the plus 7.5 come through on ECU. I love the Pirates on the money line. No quarter given. ECU is going to win this game on the field.
Check out the Parlay Express account in the free award-winning Action Network app, where we'll be posting the G5 Moneyline Parlay. You'll find a bunch of other fun long shot bets and parlays there as well. You can also find the quick slip link in the podcast and video description, or actionnetwork.com/betnow to find and tail some of the bets we've discussed today in our episode, including the G5 Moneyline Parlay. All right, now time for the best of the rest. We go through our 2-minute offenses, 3 plays each. All right, rush to the line here, Duck. What do you have for us?
We're going to stick with the FCS theme. That's been a really fun segment. So 2-minute drill. Harvard opens their season against Stetson. Jaden Craig is a complete dude at the Ivy League level at quarterback. Completed 61% last year while throwing 23 touchdowns to just 3 interceptions. Harvard has two significant mismatch creators at tight end, and it's going to make pass coverage a nightmare for Stetson. We should see Harvard in the gun, but they're still going to run some 12 personnel. They're going to run the football. Stetson's special teams is very, very poor. They surrendered a kickoff return touchdown and a punt return touchdown last week against UT Chattanooga. I'm looking for Harvard here to create significant explosive plays in the return game that'll set up short fields. Stetson had 3 plays last week longer than 10 yards, and those are the only plays the only explosiveness that they had against UT Chattanooga. They are not an explosive offense, only had 8 first downs and 29 total rushing yards, and that was the first FCS level opponent they had played all season. 3 of 15 on third down was Stetson. It's really going to go wonky here. The projection is Harvard minus 30. I'd lay up to 34.5. The Crimson are going to roll. Next one, everyone's dogging on Virginia Tech. They've looked terrible this season. They just fired Brett Pry. The season's in shambles, and now Wofford comes to town. Virginia Tech is projected at just minus 26. I would lay up to 37.5 in this spot. We know Virginia Tech is a mess. We know the offense has just really looked wonky, and the defense couldn't get Old Dominion off of the field while allowing 49 points. And I want to lay 4 touchdowns with the Hokies. Am I nuts, Duck? Yes, I am crazy, but Wofford is so bad at the FCS level, and they will not be able to compete here. They've accumulated 181 rushing yards in 3 total games on 81 attempts, has Wofford, 2.2 yards per carry. 68 of those yards was on 1 play. They can't run the football. They cannot protect the quarterback. They've rotated through a couple quarterbacks, and it has not worked well, just 41% completion percentage. 7 of 39 on third down. Wofford's going to get buried here. Last one, San Jose State hosts Idaho. Idaho's a good FCS team. This projected line is anywhere from 6.5 to 8.5. I would lay 13.5 here with San Jose State, who's in a major save-your season spot after starting 0-2. Jose's gotten off to a bad start, but they've got the bye week now to retool the offense. We know they've found their replacement for Nick Nash in Danny Scudero. He's absolutely electric. 249 receiving yards and 16 yards per catch. We saw Idaho shred a non-scholarship FCS team, but when they played Wazoo and last week against Utah Tech, the offense just looked really wonky. They can't throw the ball. They're not going to be able to play catch-up when they're down. San Jose State is going to bury Idaho. I think they win by 3 or 4 touchdowns.
All right, time for my 2-minute drill. Let's get started. Ball State at UConn. The Huskies laying 20.5. This is a trust your numbers situation. To me, Ball State is a bottom 10 team in the FBS. They got rocked 73-3 to start their season by Purdue and Auburn, and they needed a last drive stand against New Hampshire to salvage a win against an FCS opponent. The running game can work. Ashley has wiggle and can turn on the jets. Kyle Kelly is a very good runner, but he's essentially a wing T quarterback. Let's call it what it is. You don't want him throwing the ball more than 15 times or it gets really hairy for the Cardinals. You know, he processes too slowly. His offensive line is total shit. He takes too many sacks. He's already been sacked 11 times in 3 games this season. Whereas UConn on the other side, they should have beat Syracuse. And this offense is pretty nasty. Skylar Bell will victimize this Ball State secondary. He's second in receiving yards among G5 receivers if we lump UConn into the G5, 322 yards there already. And Fignano is spinning the ball. Like, I look at him, 5 TDs, no turnovers, 6 big-time throws, only 1 turnover-worthy play, 66% completion percentage, a healthy ADOT, and his line is 41st in pass blocking. I think this has all the makings of a 40, maybe 50-point game out of UConn. And yes, the UConn defense got worked by Delaware, but they were super competitive against Syracuse. So taking those highs and those lows and figuring they're going to be somewhere in the middle, they're going to get some stops. They're going to get off the field. I'll go UConn 45, Ball State 20. All right, next, a couple letdown spots. Georgia State catching 27.5 at Vanderbilt. We know that Diego and Clark Lee are big game hunters. They take down Alabama last year. They throw serious scares in LSU and Texas. They beat the crap out of South Carolina, basically ruined their season, knocked Sellers out. They looked like the more physical, vicious, ruthless, throat slash kind of team out of the SEC compared to the doormat they've been in previous years. But when they play the dregs, they go through the motions. They lost to this Georgia State team last year. They were tied with Ball State in the 4th quarter. I think this is an absolute letdown spot. And whether it's TJ Finley or Cameron Brown for Georgia State, they've looked pretty good, particularly Brown. Brown, I think, he's thrown 5 touchdowns, 0 picks. whoever's throwing the ball, they're throwing the ball to Ted Hurst, who's one of the best G5 wide receivers. He got 275 receiving yards through 3 games. So give me Hurst to secure a backdoor cover in this game. 27.5 is too many points. I have this closer to 3 touchdowns, so I'll take the value. Going to close this out with another letdown. Georgia Tech coming off just an absolutely transformational win for them. All of a sudden, they're in the ACC driver's seat. And this has been more of the same from Brent Key. 11-5 against the spread as a dog, 7-1 straight up against ranked opponents. But when you look at the other side of the coin, 14-15 straight up against non-ranked opponents. And as a home favorite, he's simply treaded water against the spread, 4-1 against the closing number in the past 2.5 seasons. Temple got humbled by OU, but there's still indicators that they are a good dog. They've yet to turn the ball over this season. Casey Keeler last year at Sam Houston, 4-2 as an underdog with 4 outright upsets. He's won an FCS national championship. He knows how to talk to a locker room that got humbled. He went through the transition at Sam Houston. They took some bad losses. They went from highs to lows. He kept them even keel. I love what he's doing. And finally, Georgia Tech would be wise to put Haynes King in bubble wrap. Everything's ahead of them this season. The schedule is forgiving, but all goes off the rails if he gets injured and they lose him for an extended period of time, or God forbid, a season-ending injury. You're going to see second and third stringers in the second half of this game. I'll take the Owls plus 24. All right, that is it for our 2-minute drills, which means we're going to close out this episode with our Tug of War. No big deal. Back-to-back winners for me. I am now at Duck's 40-yard line. He's backing up, maybe heels on his red zone. Let's see if he can get a win. I'll let him go first here in this matchup between Bowling Green and Louisville. The Power 4 team laying just shy of 4 touchdowns. 26 is the number, with UL being favored.
Yeah, so, we're trying to find something we disagree on. There wasn't a ton this weekend, but I do think that Bowling Green has shown a significant amount of fight in recent weeks. We saw Louisville in major trouble against James Madison. They were being pushed around in the trenches for 2.5 quarters. And while I don't think Bowling Green is going to do that, they have had elevated quarterback play from Drew Pine, and the defense has been tougher than expected, holding teams to just 3.2 yards per carry on the ground and 11 out of 34 on third down. In the second half against Cincinnati, BG's defense forced a field goal, a fumble, another field goal, and then a touchdown. But Cincinnati had to work for absolutely everything. There was no freebies, there was no explosivity, there was no cheapies. With a conference road trip on deck and coming off the bye, I could just see Louisville coming out a little sluggish, maybe going through the motions. It won't surprise me at all if they pull away and win by 19, 22, 23. But I think at 26, we're getting into that territory where Bowling Green is going to do enough, truncating the game down, running it, using that 12 personnel, and keeping it within 26.
All right, when I look at the other side of this, I feel comfortable laying the number because a couple weeks ago, a best bet for me was against this same Louisville team. I had James Madison plus 14.5, won by the hook. But I came away super impressed with Ron English's defense, full of disruptive athletes. They're averaging 5 sacks per game, which is tops in the nation, second in yards per play allowed. Best of luck, Drew Pine. Cleve Lubin and Wesley Bailey are going to eat your lunch. They're going to uncork Pine's head in this game. And you know what's going to come spilling out? All of his checkdowns. He's just filled with checkdowns because that's all that he's going to do in this game. And then on the other side of things, from a clean pocket, Miller Moss is my guy. Against James Madison, he was pressured 10 times. He didn't look good. But the thing is, the Dukes were able to generate that with 4- and 5-man pressures and do some things on the back end. You could see him hesitating because he didn't know exactly what he was looking at in some situational spots. Bowling Green, to me, I know that they got some nice stops in the second half against Cincinnati, but they can't generate a ton of pressure with their front four. They only mustered 3 total pressures against Sorsby and that Cincinnati offense. And the lesson there was they got to blitz more, which they did against Liberty. They generated 10 pressures and sacked Vasco 4 times. Here's the thing, though. If you look at Miller Moss's entire career, when he knows that a blitz is coming, he is a big play killer. Like, you look at his seasonal ADOT against the blitz this season, 14.8 with 2 touchdowns and no picks. In a full sample size, a full year in 2024 at USC, 13 TDs, 2 picks against the blitz. And it was even better in 2023 with a PFF passer grade of 91.7 when facing the blitz. So they're kind of in a damned if they do, damned if they don't spot. And then there's Isaac Brown, maybe the best explosive runner in the entire country. If you have a big number to cover, you want those one-play touchdowns of 50-plus yards. Brown has the highest breakaway percentage in the sport, which means 84% of his rushing yardage this season has come on runs or 15 yards or more. He's insanely explosive. I think that's going to get them over the hump. And when Bowling Green is down by 3 and 4 scores and they have to pass the ball and Louisville's pass rushers can just pin their ears back, I think that's going to be bad news for Drew Pine. If there was a side market, an exotic market for Pine not to finish this game and for another quarterback to play at least a full quarter, this would be the one to do it. I think he's going to be a pinata in this game and they're going to beat the crap out of him. So that's my thought here. We'll see if I can make it 3 in a row here on the Tug of War. And that's it for this episode. So we've done it. Another one in the books of the Group of 5 Deep Dive under the Big Bets on Campus banner. Thanks for tuning in. As always, don't forget to download the free award-winning Action Network app and leave us that 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to the podcast. I'm going to go ahead and pick a 5-star review in the next episode and give out a free $10 future. And remember, if you'd like to tail some of the bets that we talked about in today's episode, look for the quick slip link in the episode description. You can also go to actionnetwork.com/bet now to find those as well. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Search for BBOC and you'll have access to all of our college football content. Some of it actually comes out earlier than it'll come to your podcast feed. So if you're always in search of the best angles at the best prices, you have to be subscribed to the YouTube channel. Check out our guy Stuckey on the favorites every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. He's now in the captain's chair there. And thanks for listening to the Big Bets on Campus podcast. And as always, best of luck with all your bets.